What is going on, guys? Rewinds here, and in this video I'm going to be bringing you guys my review for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Manga chapter number 27. I do know this is a little bit late. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get around to recording till now, but here we are. Let's talk about the chapter. The chapter itself was titled Bet Your Life on It, and we have a Inojin solo cover, which I actually thought looked pretty cool, despite some past criticism I've given of Inojin's time skip design when it first came out. I want to give Ikimoto flowers for yet again delivering another good cover, and I want to say that it's going to be very interesting to see what Inojin's role is going to be going forward, because they're clearly setting him up to do something big. And I do want to also say that I like how Ikimoto's been handling a lot of like this side character utilization in the 2 Blue Vortex section as opposed to what he did in part 1. So stuff is looking pretty interesting. We kick off this month's chapter with Damon letting Sarada and Sumire go and pretty much just explaining to them that, hey, I could pretty much cook you guys in an instant. You guys don't stand a chance. Ada is pretty much questioning how they aren't impacted by omnipotence, and she mentions the idea of them not being affected because they love Boruto, but she dismisses that idea because she feels like there's also others who carry a torch for Boruto and Kawaki. So that possibility is also addressed. I know that was a fan theory for a bit, that maybe Sarada and Sumire aren't, affected by omnipotence because they love Boruto. But Ada says that's not completely it. She says it must have been done unconsciously by her desire for friends, and that dates back to that one chapter in part 1 of Boruto where they're all talking with Ada, Sumire and Sarada are talking to her, and pretty much just telling her that, they'd like to be friends. So that ended up fueling that desire, and I feel like that makes that chapter look a lot more important now, because I remember that chapter when it first came out. Some people were really not happy with it because I guess they expected something crazier, but rather we got like that kind of convo chapter, and I remember people weren't the biggest fan of it. But after that, pretty much Ada just says she doesn't think that they would harm her, but even if they did, she would be okay being killed by them. And then she ended up giving Sarada and Sumire hugs. She says, "It's nice to meet you again, my dear friends." And then we cut over to the next scene of the chapter, pretty much, where it's Shikamaru still chatting with Kashin Koji, and Kashin Koji is explaining Mamushi's abilities. So he can divide unlimitedly without any loss of chakra, power, or stamina. So that's what's being told about him right now. And the con to that ability, though, because otherwise he'd be way too OP, is that every time he divides, he faces a significant drop in intelligence. His sense of pain ends up dulling, and his behaviors become simpler. So the move, according to Koji, is to get them taken out in a fell swoop after they divide. Koji also says that they must destroy both his eyes to prevent him from dividing any further. So Koji's coming in clutch here with all this information, because let's be real, without this intel Koji has, everybody would be cooked. The Shinju would win. There would be pretty much little to no chance without Koji's ability here. So as their head count decreases, the intelligence will once again start to improve. That is something that Koji also mentions. He suggests to allow them to divide to about 20 to 30 bodies, and that they'll be easier to handle at this point, as if they're dealing with animals pretty much. But ideally, they need to be taken out in one fell swoop. Shikamaru is concerned, and this is a valid concern. He's pretty much concerned that one of them staying behind at the base could be an issue. But Koji says that even if that's the case, they're by instinct flocking together, so that one that stays behind at the base would end up joining back up. Next, Inojin pitches in and says that why Konoha for the spot of the confrontation, and Koji says it's to prevent Jura from intervening. He says that he's targeting Boruto and Himawari, but he won't appear if it's in Konoha. And Shikamaru has said that, they've had some sensory units, reporting some sightings of him and whatnot, but he hasn't really done anything to damage anyone or damage, anything in the village either. Koji says to avoid incurring Jura's wrath, Mamushi will refrain from pointless destruction. Boruto asks even if he gets dumber if that still applies. Koji says yes because as even by instinct, the fear of Jura and the target of Ada will always be there for him. So good explanation there as well. I did like that. Koji doing wonders over here with this breakdown. I feel. Koji also tells Inojin that he must master a new jutsu and that it's a superior version of the mind transfer jutsu. Also, it's mentioned that Mamushi is expected to be in Konoha within a few days to a week. He tells Inojin that he must master this jutsu in 2 days. He says it's something Inojin would have came up with to avenge Himawari anyway. And that sets something off in Inojin because he's a little bit more angry now hearing that, and he says, "What did you just say?" And Koji says, "It's a future we must avoid, but the theories and techniques that Inojin gained from it were of great value." Inojin is still angry and now more focused and says he doesn't need 2 days and he's determined to learn it now in one. So that just shows you the level of how much Inojin cares for Himawari and how, badly he doesn't want Himawari to get killed, of course. So Inojin's going to lock in here, I think, and learn this new jutsu. I'm pretty excited to see actually the jutsu in full effect. So that should be some pretty cool stuff. Hopefully we see that in the next chapter too. Kawaki and Amado is the next scene where we pretty much have them watching some footage together from the fight with Jura, and Amado says that he seems impossible to kill. Kawaki says that he thinks he can do it, but he needs more power. And as Amado is questioning that, Kawaki ends up pinning Amado against the wall and grabs him by the throat and tells him to do what he's told if he wants help with his daughter. Amado says that Kawaki's body won't tolerate much more. How are you going to fight Jura if you self-destruct first? Kawaki says he's not granting Amado's wish till he's eliminated his enemies. So that's pretty much something he can hold against Amado for a bit. But then again, Amado could counter back by saying hey, you won't be able to beat Jura anyway without my help. But in order to push for his goals, though, I think Amado is going to end up helping Kawaki out. But we'll see if Kawaki's body can actually handle the power up or not. Next, we switch over to another front where we have Konohamaru being interrogated by Kubo, and they're pretty much talking. Konohamaru says he's detested Boruto at the time of the interrogation, but now feels a contradiction to that. Kubo is saying he's surprised that Konohamaru would even say such a thing under these circumstances. Kubo's thinking to himself that Konohamaru doesn't really have the characteristic of a mole. He's pretty upfront, more I guess Naruto vibes is, which makes sense. That's always been Konohamaru's character, so that lines up. Shikamaru then contacts Konohamaru through the mind transfer and tells him to hear him out and not react. Shikamaru is requesting that Konohamaru help them out and lend him a hand. He also reveals that he was the reason that Boruto was set free through giving Mitsuki the key to the cuffs. So Konohamaru now is going to be making a big decision. I feel like he's going to help them out, especially because he has a different feeling towards Boruto now after the last mission. So I think Konohamaru is going to lock in over here and help him out. I do want to also say that Sai is looking like he's caught on to something going on because he's also in that interrogation room. Sai might have an idea that this is a mind transfer conversation going on. He's definitely noticed something. And I do feel like that's an important detail because Sai is the head of the Anbu, and Sai's wife is, literally the best, if not one of the best, at using the mind transfer jutsu. So, makes sense for Sai to catch on. I feel like that's also a good piece of writing right there. We then head towards pretty much the final scenes of the chapter. We're on the last 8 to 10 pages now, and Sumire is leaving pretty much from Sarada and Ada, and she says she needs to go to the lab. Sarada tries to get away as well, but Ada doesn't let her. She hugs her to hold her back. As Sumire goes running out of the door, Boruto is waiting for her on the side. Boruto says, "Yo, can you fix my sword?" And he also hands her a scroll with some technology that doesn't exist in the world yet, but that she would go on to make through her research. So again, pretty cool stuff with the future sight ability, because Koji being able to see this future is kind of helping out with just being able to tell that in some alternate future timeline, Sumire has mastered this, pretty much design of the tech that can help fix the sword. And I feel like that's a good way to make her relevant right now as well, because she hasn't done a lot at the start of Two Blue Vortex, but I will say her role has been increasing more and more the last like 5 to 10 chapters as opposed to the starting ones, which is cool to see. Um, Sumire responds by saying she could fix the sword for him, but it might take on a different shape. Boruto responds by saying that as long as it ends up stronger, he doesn't think his master would object. Pretty cool stuff there, because I mean it is Sasuke's blade, so it's awesome to see that he respects Sasuke's, weapon even to this degree of an extent. So just shows you the love he has for Sasuke and how much he really cares about him. And honestly, I really like seeing moments like that. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the chapter. Sumire pretty much then says there's only one problem, and she ends up revealing that is no more calling me class rep, and to call her pretty much Sumire instead. She then runs off laughing, and she says that she'll jazz it up and for Boruto to look forward to it. So Sumire, making another step over here and trying to get towards Boruto. That's already one thing, making sure you're being called by your actual name rather than the class rep name that you've been given through the academy. So we'll see what goes on with that. But pretty much to end off the chapter, we cut to several days later now, where Mamushi is now invading, and there's currently 5 of him, and one is saying to keep their chakra signatures erased so no one catches on to them. And that's where the chapter ends. So next chapter, the action should begin. This, again, just like last month, was, I feel like, a very similar quality chapter to last month's, and I feel like it was good. It was a good setup chapter. I would say somewhere in that realm of good to pretty good. And in terms of setup, you could argue that it was even a great chapter. I'm going to give this month's chapter a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. I believe that's what I gave last month's chapter as well. I like that we touched up on a couple different fronts yet again. I feel like this is just a Ikimoto staple now in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, and I like that he's doing that. We pretty much touched up on the whole Damon thing at the start of the chapter. You had like Ada address the omnipotence thing, which was big, and then you had Sarda and Sumire pretty much make up with her as well. Then you had the whole Mamushi's abilities being explained by Koji, and we got a good breakdown of that. We also got to see how Inojin's going to be relevant with this new jutsu he's going to learn, and we know in an alternate reality or alternate timeline that Himawari does die, and Inojin locks in on these jutsu because of that. We also got to touch up on the whole Kawaki and Amado front for a few pages as well. Kawaki asking for a new power-up and threatening Amado. And we got to see a few pages of Konohamaru being questioned as well by Kubo, and us seeing Sai being perceptive as well here, and Konohamaru being faced with the decision of whether he wants to help or not. And then to end off the chapter, it's Sumire getting this technology that she would eventually have, and she's supposed to lock in now to help Boruto have a stronger weapon, which I think she is going to be able to do. And then to end it off, we have Mamushi invading. So I think that's like 5 or 6 different fronts we touched up on in this chapter that were ongoing, and I do feel like that is a pretty good way to pace it out. So I'm happy with what we got this month. Hopefully next month we start trending now to some more exciting action stuff, because I know that we've had a couple setup chapters lately, and I always like those too, but I feel like it's time for us to get moving towards the payoff again. So I'm excited to see what Mamushi's going to do next month. I feel like this next month it's going to be him just wreaking havoc. They're probably going to make him look like a beast, and then maybe towards the end of the chapter, we're going to get some sort of cliffhanger where he starts dividing or something like that to a bigger extent, to the point where some more of the village ninja can lock in and get some moments to shine as well going forward. But that's it for my review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Definitely let me know what you guys thought of the chapter in the comments below. But that's going to be it for this one. If you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you guys are new. And as always, I hope you guys have a good day or night whenever you guys are watching this video. I'm Rewinds, and I'm out.